Thank you, Dr. Singh, for joining us. I wanted to begin by asking you, how do you look at the visit by Aung San Suu Kyi to Delhi? Tell us, what does it mean for India?
The visit by Aung San Suu Kyi was awaited for a long time. The moment that she was released from house arrest soon after the elections in 2010, there was hope that Aung San Suu Kyi would come to India, and because of old links with her and her family, her mother was ambassador to Delhi, and there were traditional links with Burma even earlier. Now, Myanmar is in a phase of transition, and in this phase of transition, the role that Aung San Suu Kyi would play would be significant. It is hoped that the links that were there with India in the past would be revived and would continue in a new phase of development in Myanmar. The way I see it, our relationship with Myanmar has distinct phases. There was the phase before independence when the nationalist leaders of India, Nehru and General Aung San in Myanmar, Burma, had close ties. The freedom struggle in India and the freedom struggle in Myanmar the leadership had close links. Later on, when Myanmar, Burma got its independence in 1948, after that, Burma tried its experiment with democracy, and it tried till 1958. For 10 years, Burma was attempting democracy, and we know that thereafter the democracy experiment failed, and 1962 onwards specifically, you had the military in power. So, right since 1962 till 2011, the military had been in continuous power in Myanmar. And after the elections of 2010, Aung San Suu Kyi was released from house arrest. And so a new era has begun in Myanmar, and this new era is signified by certain important developments. One was the Constitution of 2008, the other was the elections that were held in 2010, and then in 2011 you have a parliament, a new parliament in place. Now there are certain problems still remaining in Myanmar. One of the problems is that the Constitution of 2008, which is the third constitution of Myanmar, this constitution is still dominated by the military. While on the one hand, the military junta no longer exists, once the parliament came into being in 2011, the fact remains that the constitution is still military dominated, and all the important cabinet portfolios are occupied by military people. This has to change before the next elections take place in 2015. So there is a window of opportunity in Myanmar for these changes to take place. And if these changes take place, then you can really hope for a true changeover to democracy.
So, what about India's role when it comes to democracy? Because I think that has been the biggest criticism, that India did not stand by the lady, as she's referred to, in the times that she's required. And in fact, even during her lecture at Vigyan Bhavan, the Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Lecture, she mentioned about this expectations that was she had from India. Please tell us something about that.
You see, India had traditionally followed a policy of supporting democracy movement in Burma. What happened in 1988 was the movement for democracy, and at that point of time, India was supporting the democracy movement in Myanmar. And thereafter, our policy change occurred only in 1993. Why did this change occur?
Is it to do with the Chinese in?
There are many factors actually. A number of factors which make Myanmar such a strategic neighbor of India that we cannot afford to ignore. Whoever rules Myanmar, we cannot ignore the relationship between India and Myanmar as two governments. The reason was, of course, strategic. There were reasons of security for our northeast. There were reasons of the growing importance of China in Myanmar. And one lesson that we learned was the lesson from the Operation Golden Bird, when India and Myanmar armies were cooperating to apprehend our own insurgents who were taking refuge in Myanmar. At that point of time, there was that operation had to be called off because the Indian government at that point of time gave the award to Aung, Suu Kyi. Now, that was the lesson drawn at that time was that if we want to have them cooperate in our endeavors, then we cannot afford to antagonize the Myanmar. Changed. We have come a long way since then. There have been, as I mentioned, a number of political changes in Myanmar, and India has taken note of those changes and thereby nuanced its policy towards Myanmar.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Singh.